Hey everybody, Shar here. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. This is going to be part 2 of my jewelry bouquet mosaic. I'm not really sure what to call it, but anyway, if you missed part 1, I will link that down below in case you're interested in watching the process. But essentially I used a 2-part epoxy product called Epoxy Sculpt and embedded all of my embellishments into the epoxy, as well as added my vase. So today what I'm going to be doing is sealing the wood, adding the table that the vase is sitting on, as well as the background tiles. So let's go ahead and get started. I debated for a while what color I wanted to do the background and the table. Just because there's so much already going on, I didn't want to take away from the bouquet itself, but I also didn't want to do anything too boring in the background. At first I thought, okay, what about white? But then I thought that might look too stark with all of this other busyness going on at the top. So what I think I've landed on is using gold tiles for the base that will make the table, and then in the back using smaller blue tiles, like light blue tiles, and I think that'll look good. So I actually didn't have any of these kind of gold metallic style tiles on hand, so I actually did an experiment and made them myself. And I took this gold kind of metallic shiny paper, it's just, you know, craft cardstock kind of stuff, and I took a piece of clear glass that I cut from a sheet of clear glass, and I used Weld Bond glue, and I actually glued the paper onto one side of the glass. And so Weld Bond does dry clear, so what you're left with is a really cool, it looks just like a regular mosaic tile. And that got me thinking, well, if it worked with that paper, you can use any kind of paper you want to create really awesome tiles. So this one is polka dots. I love that one, that's so cute. And then this is almost like a crazing effect. So I thought that was a cool little experiment, and I'll just show you the paper that I used. So this was actually a Christmas cardstock that I just cut a little piece off of, and then a vintage kind of style paper for the other one, and I just cut a little piece out of it. So I think that's just a great way that, you know, you don't have to go out and buy every color of every mosaic stained glass or tile. You can just use what you have on hand. And this is actually a broken picture frame, glass from a picture frame. So, you know, that this was free. The paper, I didn't have to go out and buy it. I had it on hand. So, I think one thing that I'm learning from the whole pandemic and having to stay home is just using what I have and making it work, instead of thinking, oh, well, I need to go, you know, to Hobby Lobby or wherever and get gold tiles and figure out what I'm going to use for the background. And it's just like, no, you know, like, let's look at what I have it on hand and get creative. I just thought I would pass that along in case anyone would be able to use that little tip. So with that said, I think for this area what I'm going to do is just cut out the gold paper so it'll fit kind of just right along here, and glue it down, and then cut out little squares on my glass and then glue those on top of it, and then the final part will be grouting. But before we do any of that, it's important to seal the wood. And you may be asking, why would you have to seal the wood? And the answer is, from my understanding, since wood is very porous, if you took your tile, put a little glue on the back, and stuck it on here, the wood would absorb a lot of that glue very quickly, and you may not be left with enough to get a nice adhesion between the tile and the wood. So it's better to seal the wood so that when you go ahead and glue your tiles down, it's not seeping through. There's a barrier between the wood and your tile already, so it's not just going to suck that all out, and you get a really good adhesion. And that's important with mosaic tiles because you don't want your tiles to pop off. That's a bummer. And this is I don't know if I mentioned this in my last video, but this is going to be an indoor mosaic. You don't want to use wood for outdoor mosaics. So how do we seal it? Well, just use your weld bond. Mix with a little bit of water. There's no like precise ratio that I use. I'm sure you can find a ratio out there, but I just fill a container with just a little bit of water, add my weld bond, and then mix it up. And I'm just using an old paintbrush for this. So you just kind of want like a milky consistency, and that probably was even too much water. Like, you don't need a whole lot, but it'll work. I can even do 2 coats of this on the wood, and it should dry pretty fast. Oh, here comes my cat. Hi, Buckle. He's decided to lay right next to the camera. Say hi. You want to be in the video, Buckle? He's so sweet. I'm gonna let this dry, and in the meantime I'm gonna cut my gold piece for the bottom here, and I'll be back. Alright, so I have now cut my 3 little pieces here. I tried to make it all one piece, but it just was not working. So I have 3 pieces of the metallic gold paper. My base is pretty much dry, and I'm going to use the weld bond again to glue these down. Okay, while that dries, I'm going to show you the tiles that I'll be using. So I cut these little glass tiles. I'll show you how I cut those. So you take your sheet of glass. You're going to need a glass scorer, and this one I got off of Amazon. I will link it down below. And then you're going to need a pair of running pliers. I think I also got these on Amazon, and I'll leave the link down below. These have been pretty good, but I've had to tape on the little rubber tops. And there's just like a line right there, and that's where you know where to squeeze and press to run the line, to run it along your score line, and that's why they're called running pliers, I think. So I like to use a ruler to get a straight line. And to make it easy, I'm just gonna do the length of the the width of the ruler. What you can do is measure, you know, the width on this side, and then go like this and score. But today I'm just gonna make it easy. Then you hold it down pretty well, and then you use the tip, and that rolls and it scores the glass. And you can hear it too, so I'll be quiet when I do this so you can hear it. Oops. It's like a ripping noise. And I try to stop just before the end, because if you go all the way to the end, sometimes that pressure of kind of coming off the edge can nick the end of your glass. So it's a little tip. But if you can see now, there's a line scored all the way along right here. And the end of your glass scorer has a little ball, and you can tap that along the line. And that further creates a break in the glass and little cracks. And it helps it. Sometimes you may have trouble with glass where then you go in with your running pliers and you squeeze it and it'll go, and then it'll come off and you'll have like a shard and it won't continue. So this kind of helps it continue. Sorry, I shouldn't do that while I'm talking. This kind of helps it continue all the way along. But sometimes it's just unpredictable and you can't get a perfect cut. But this glass seems to do pretty good, so let's see how I did. Perfect. So that gives me like these little tiles. It's the same, it's really hard to see because it's clear, but it's the same width that I did there. So what I did is then I took my ruler and I started on this side, because if you start here, it's hard to see, you know, how far in you are. So you start on this side, and I'm gonna just get rid of this uneven edge here. And I'm just gonna score a line there, and that'll break away, and that won't be used for this project. But then I go from this line as far out as I want to, and then I score like that all the way along. And again, you can measure this out and put a little mark with a Sharpie or something so you know you're getting perfect cuts. But I just eyeball it. One more. Okay. So then you can use your running pliers all the way along. And then you have a bunch of little rectangles. And be very careful when you're doing this. Like, I'm always wearing safety glasses, and you can also wear a mask because there is like particles of glass, so it's probably good to wear a mask. And then you can wear gloves, but it's really hard for me to wear gloves when I'm doing this kind of stuff because it's hard to maneuver these little pieces. But you could. So then you just find the pieces you want to use. Okay, I think that looks good. And now what I'm going to do is take my pieces off, but then lay them down in the same order, and then glue them on with the weld bond. So that's going to be pretty simple. Okay, so the tiles that I'm thinking of using are these, I think they're called like ice blue. Let's see. Yeah, they're iceberg blue from Kismet Mosaic. This whole bag was $10.80, so not bad. I'm still undecided. Like, let's see what it'll look like. I think it'll be cute. Okay. I'm going for it. That one looks weird. I'm gonna flip it so it's easier to work with. Zoom in for you. And I'll probably just speed through this process so you guys don't have to, this is gonna take a while. It's probably gonna take me like an hour. And y'all don't probably have time to watch me for an hour and ramble on. Okay, so that didn't take as long as I thought it would. I said an hour, but it took 28 minutes. So I think it looks really good. I'm glad I went with the light blue. I think it's a good complement to these colors, and I can't wait to see what this gold looks like when this is all dry. So the next step is just letting this dry for a couple days, and then I'm gonna go ahead and grout, and I will just add that onto this video, of course, so you'll be able to see that as well. And then I think I'm just going to, I could paint the edges. I could do just like black to match the grout, or I could decoupage with some more paper. But anyway, that's it for right now, and I'll be back. Alright guys, so it's time to grout. As you can see, the glue has dried and it is completely clear. It is no longer cloudy. There's a few little spots that have air bubbles, but that's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and grout. So I obviously have my gloves on, and I just have a cup with, this is white grout, and I'm gonna be actually grouting with black, but I don't have black grout, so I'm gonna be using a product called Earth Pigments, and it's black iron oxide. That's the color I'm gonna be using. So it's basically just a black pigment, and it comes in all sorts of different colors. Just gonna scoop some of that in there and mix it up. So one thing I wanted to mention real quick is that when you're working with any type of grout or thin set, cement, or any type of cementitious product, you should wear a mask because you don't want to be breathing in the dust. Okay, so now that my black iron oxide pigment is mixed in the white pretty well, I'm going to add my water. And I do this slowly because I don't want to have to go in and add more powder if I put too much water. And personally, I like to work with grout that's not too soupy. I like it more on like the harder side, but obviously not too hard. You want to actually be able to move it around. But I think what I've heard other people say is kind of like peanut butter consistency. So I want to get this mixed in really, really well. I don't want any white spots of grout. I want it to be a nice consistent color. And using these pigments, you can make grout any color you want. It comes in greens, blues, reds, yellows. And you can mix those colors together. So the sky's the limit, which makes it really fun. Okay, this is pretty well mixed. Now you want to let your grout slake for, I think my bag said 15 minutes. And all that means is it's all the chemicals inside of the grout are, now that you've added water, the chemicals are doing what they need to do, and you have to let it sit for that long to allow that to happen, and then I'll be back. Alright, so now I'm going to give the grout one last stir and then start grouting. Alright, now I'm going to let this set up for, I don't know, maybe 5-10 minutes, not too long, because you don't want it to set up too much, but I'm just going to let it set up for a little bit and then start cleaning it up. Okay, now I'm going to start the process of cleaning the grout off of the top of the tiles, and I'm just using some wet paper towels. I should say damp paper towels. So essentially what you want to do is wipe away, and you don't necessarily want to go back in with that same dirty spot. You kind of want to get a little bit more of a clean area and wipe like that. And so every time you wipe, you're getting a little bit more off the top of the tiles. But you don't want to dig in or really scrub in there, because you don't want to take off or take out the grout that's in between the tiles and have any deep gouges in there. So usually I'll get to like that stage where it's pretty clean and I'll move on to the next one, because I don't want to go too far and take too much off. And then I'll do my final cleaning at the end. And I'm going to be using Q-tips to get in to these kind of more small, delicate areas where I got it into the jewelry. So I want to take that off. So that was my initial cleanup. What I'm going to do now is probably do that one more time and then go in with all the details. And then when it's completely dry, I'm going to paint the edges black. And before I paint it, I might give it a quick sand just to get any big lumps of grout off. And then I'll paint it black. And then I'll catch up with you guys and show you how it turned out. Alright guys, here is the finished product. I think it turned out really well. As you can see, I did the detail clean and I also painted the edges black. I just used an acrylic paint for the edges, and I also signed the back. I always think it's important to sign and date your artwork. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I inspired you to make something similar or try your hand at mosaic arts. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.